Good evening. Welcome to the Forum on Fluoridation. First we'll do the ceremonial. Please switch off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. My name is Stephen Fullerell. I'll be your moderator this evening. Why am I the moderator? The County Public Health Officer recently invited me to join the Public Health Department's Fluoridation Advisory Committee, and I accepted. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Sonoma County Water Coalition. However, for this evening, I'm not representing anyone. I'm just a grandfather, I live in Santa Rosa, and I drink tap water. My hope for this evening is that those with no opinion on the subject will become informed, those with an opinion will become better informed, and that some may even change their opinions on the subject. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Clean Water Sonoma-Marin, Clean Water California, and the Sonoma County Water Coalition. I'd also like to thank our panel members, and especially you, our audience, for spending the evening with us. Why are we doing a forum on fluoridation now? In 2011, the Sonoma County Department of Health Services recommended the fluoridation of Sonoma County water and proposed that the Board of Supervisors investigate its feasibility. A draft fluoridation preliminary engineering design report was presented in May this year, and the Board of Supervisors will vote on whether to fluoridate the water in early 2012, early next year. 2014, sorry. Acknowledging that there are strong feelings for and against fluoridation, the recent Sonoma County Grand Jury report on fluoridation recommended that we educate ourselves on this controversial subject. The Grand Jury also recommended that the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors make impartial decisions on fluoridation, allowing for both pro and con views to be heard. Since the county has not yet made time for both views to be heard and weighed together, we decided to organize tonight's forum on fluoridation. Our panel members are practicing dentists, Dr. Laura Wilson and Dr. Bill Osmunson. As you can see, the pro-fluoridation seats are not filled. Originally, the Health Services Department had indicated that they would provide 2 pro-fluoridation panel members, but in the end was unable to do so. A local dental society also declined requests for suggestions. One pro-fluoridation professional accepted our invitation to participate. Dr. Esmond Jen, the Dean of Instruction of Health Sciences at Santa Rosa Junior College, was kind enough to accept, but at the last minute was unable to find a substitute to teach his Monday evening class. Unfortunately, we got the news too late to remove Dr. Jen's name from the ads and the poster, so we apologize for that. Nevertheless, this is an opportunity to hear both sides and get answers to your questions. We're going to start by asking Drs. Osmunson and Wilson to introduce themselves and tell us why they became involved in fluoridation issues. Then there will be a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation with 15 slides taken from a presentation that was made by one of the leading pro-fluoridation consultants. Dr. Osmunson will introduce those slides and read them to you. He will not comment on them. I hope by his tone of voice he will not indicate what his opinion is about any of the slides. And then Dr. Osmunson will have his own 10-minute presentation, PowerPoint presentation to Dr. Osmunson and Dr. Wilson will have a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation. But most of the evening will be for me to ask questions to the panel members and for you, the audience, to ask questions to the panel members. You may have been given a card when you came in for you to write your question on. If you have more than one question, raise your hand and get another card. Somebody will be collecting those cards, will sort them by topic, give them to me, and then I will ask those questions to the audience in the second part of the questioning session. So the question and answer is the main part of this evening. We're not subjecting you to deal in PowerPoint presentations. Each panel member, when we get to the question and answer session, will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. And we're very fortunate to have Jan Landman with us this evening. Thank you, Jan, who's going to be our timekeeper. She has cards to show the panel members when they're running out of time. When they have 30 seconds left, 15 seconds left, and when to stop. That way we can make sure that we get to as many questions as possible in the time we have available. And if we don't get to respond to your question, I'm sure there'll be many more forums on fluoridation between now and next year. So don't lose hope, your question. There's the question collector over there.
So if anyone needs
Now we're going to start by asking each member of the panel to spend 2 minutes just speaking about themselves, their qualifications, and why they became involved in fluoridation issues.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm Dr. Bill Osmunson. I have graduated from Loma University in Southern California from my dental school. I'm also a Master's of Public Health from Loma University also. I have worked as a dentist for most of my 36 years of dentistry. For about the first 25, I promoted fluoridation of water. I wrote out prescriptions for patients to have and give to their children. I spoke to water districts and water meetings saying that this was good. And each time I kind of had a little knot in my stomach because I really hadn't looked at the research. I was simply parroting what I'd been taught in school and what the American Dental Association recommended. So about 10 years ago, I started looking at the research for myself, and it was like a knee in the gut. It's one thing to sit there and say, I swallowed the fluoride. It's another thing to say that I gave it to my children and to my patients because I had failed to do my homework. So there are 100,000 different items that dentists deal with or can deal with. And for us to try to keep up with everything is very, very difficult. But this is my profession, public health. This is my profession in dentistry, and I need to give the best I can to my patients, and I failed. So it took a long time for me to slowly change. Be patient with your professionals, because it does take a paradigm shift.
Thank you, Dr. Osmunson. Dr. Wilson?
My name is Dr. Laura Gaeta Wilson, and I grew up here in Sonoma County in Kenwood, and I got my dental degree from the University of the Pacific in San Francisco. I graduated in 1986. I've been practicing about 26 years. And I got involved in this issue because when I first started practicing, like Dr. Osmunson, I was giving fluoride tablets and prescriptions for children, and they were also getting the prescriptions from their pediatricians, and we watched the children's teeth come in, and we started to notice that the teeth were coming in with spots. And parents were concerned, and people were starting to read things about fluoride and start to understand better what it was, and started asking lots of questions. Should I be giving this to my child? It was recommended, so that was the standard of care, so we made those recommendations. Yes, continue to give it, but I do see the spots, so maybe let's give half. Maybe give it every other day, or cut the pill in half, or every third day. And over time, within 10 or 15 years, the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry came out and said, gosh, we were giving too much. And it's caused this fluorosis, this mottling on the teeth, so they made a whole different schedule that children, depending on where you lived, if it was in the water, it would be so many parts, and up to 0 to 3 years it was very little, 0.25, and 3 years to 6 years it was 0.5. So what that showed me was that the positions change over time when things are used. And what concerned me about the fluoride going in the water was it's in so many different places. You can get it by choice through a prescription. The parents would make that decision to give it to their children. or you can get it in toothpaste, or you can get it in mouthwash. But if it's in the water, we all have to drink it.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Now we're asking Dr. Osmunson to show 15 PowerPoint slides, which, as we say, were selected from a presentation that originally consisted of 70 slides. I'll let Dr. Osmunson explain to you where the slides came from and just talk you through the slides. Thanks, Bill.
I have testified to the Oregon legislature, and Dr. Pollack was there also and testified. I had received these from, not directly from him, but I received them as he had published them on the internet. There are about 50-some different slides, and with 15 minutes, I need to cut that down. So I've taken what I felt were the best for this audience, and I will read them. Current science, and remember, it's 2007, so there is additional science, and he may have changed his position some. Any scientist, remember, look at the date. Howard Pollack, Health Sciences Clinical Professor, School of Dentistry, University of California, San Francisco. Community water fluoridation, there are two sections. One, safety and benefits that he covers. Safety of fluoride, all sources. The main safety issue is chronic fluoride intake from all sources during tooth development, the years less than 8 years of age, and enamel fluorosis. Recommendations: refine fluoridated toothpaste to lower the risk of fluorosis without significantly reducing its effectiveness in caries prevention. Encourage commencement of toothpaste use in the 19 to 30 month age period. Use of 400 to 550 part per million fluoridated toothpaste when toothpaste use starts. Encourage spitting after brushing. Prevent an eating-licking toothpaste habit in young children. The safety of water fluoridation, the definition of safety. The state of being certain that adverse effects will not be caused by some agent under defined conditions. Water is safe to drink if it meets regulatory standards. Safety of water fluoridation, the fluoridation chemicals meet standards. Trace contaminants such as heavy metals must not exceed the maximum allowable level, 1/10 of the EPA's regulated MCL, maximum contaminant level, when added to drinking water at its maximum use level. No detectable arsenic or lead in the majority of more than 100 samples of water fluoridated with fluorosilicic acid tested by the National Sanitation Foundation International from 1992 to 2000. The average concentration of arsenic and lead from all samples was less than 0.1 parts per billion. Action level for lead is 15 parts per billion. The maximum contaminant level for arsenic is 10 parts per billion. The safety of water fluoridation, scientific reviews. There are numerous scientific reviews. I think in the interest of time you can look at those. These are the most prominent ones. I won't read them all because I think it takes up too much time, but these are some good ones, probably the best that are available.
Bill, could I just interject that if anybody would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, contact us afterwards and we'll be happy to give it to you, and then it will be easier for you to find the references to the various facts, dig down to the references in the references. So don't be alarmed if you don't have time to scribble all the references down in your notes. We will make that to you.
Absolutely, and I think the full PowerPoint presentation would give a better representation because I had to arbitrarily reduce it. Fluoride in water, caries and fluorosis. This is a graph where we have an increase of fluoride concentration in the water going across the bottom. We have the caries experience going up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. So if there's a low concentration of fluoride in the water, then we have a increase in dental caries. As the concentration of fluoride in water increases, we have a decrease until about 1 part per million, where the maximum effect is in water. Pre-1945 data, 12 to 14 years of age. 21 U.S. cities, hundreds of children. Caries experienced, number of decayed, missing, and filled teeth per child. Enamel fluorosis, this is Dean's index, normal, questionable, very mild, moderate, and severe. Community fluorosis index. Public health significance is 0.6. I think he means parts per million there. Minimum caries, minimum fluorosis. 1 part per million fluoride in water. Dean's classification of fluorosis. These are pictures of normal teeth, and I apologize for this projector does not give you a good picture of the different questionable, very mild, and I can show them to you afterwards on this screen, which looks much better, moderate and severe. And then, of course, we have decay that is presented, and also another picture of decay, moderate to severe caries. The safety of water fluoridation, total intake and enamel fluorosis. The total tolerable upper intake level for children under 8 years of age exceeded by approximately 1 in 100 children in areas where the water fluoride concentration is 1 parts per million or slightly higher. In the 1930s and 40s, no moderate or severe cases of enamel fluorosis were recorded in these areas. Fluoride intake from water and the diet appears not to have increased since that time. Additional intake by children at risk of enamel fluorosis and almost certainly derives from the use of fluoride-containing dental products, such as toothpaste, prescription supplements. Safety of water fluoridation, infant formula and enamel fluorosis, Center for Disease Control. Recent studies have raised the possibility that mixing infant formula with fluoridated water, particularly for infants, exclusively on a formula diet during the first year of life, may play a more important role in enamel fluorosis development than was previously understood. Ready to feed, no mix. Infant formula typically has little fluoride and may be preferred for use at least some of the time. For decades, parents have been mixing infant formula with optimally fluoridated tap water, a level determined by the U.S. Public Health Service between 0.7 milligrams or parts per million and 1.2 milligrams per liter parts per million fluoride, and maintained by your water utility to maximize decay prevention and limit fluorosis potential. And no association has been observed between infant formula use and an increased risk for moderate or severe fluorosis.
Could you define what fluorosis means?
I will, but this is his presentation. I should do that now. Fluorosis is white spots on the teeth, brown spots on the teeth, depending on the severity of the amount of fluoride that was ingested while those teeth were developing. Thank you.
Dr. Osmunson is just acting as a mouthpiece at this point, so there'll be plenty of time for specific questions to Dr. Osmunson and Dr. Wilson during the question and answer. But thank you for asking that.
Thank you, Stephen, for continuing to remind them that this is what they say. This is what the pro people say, and then you're going to hear what the, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is Dr. Pollack's presentation, not mine. Safety of water fluoridation, although in many places I agree. Safety of water fluoridation. Regulatory standards, these meet the standards. Scientific reviews, 15 reviews in the past 17 years. Health concerns, no health concerns. Cosmetic concerns, cosmetic benefit is caries enamel fluorosis. In other words, I think he's saying that there's a benefit for caries, and there is enamel fluorosis, which is cosmetic. Concerns with compliance are concerned. Environmental concerns, there's no negative effect environmentally. Total intake, water fluoridation is okay. The halo or diffusion effect. Now, 12-year-old children living in states where more than half of the communities have fluoridated water will have 26% fewer decayed teeth surfaces per year than 12-year-old children living in states where less than 1/4 of the communities are fluoridated. This is called the halo effect, where people from here, the fluoridated water here will help Nevada or San Francisco will help a non-fluoridated area because children get water from different areas and it moves throughout the communities. A 12-year-old child who has lived in a non-fluoridated community in a highly fluoridated state will typically have one fewer cavity than a child in a low fluoridated state. Fluoride is cost effective. Every dollar spent on community water fluoridation saves from $7 to $42 in treatment costs, depending on the size of the community. Savings are greatest in large communities. At least 60% of the U.S. population of public water systems has received fluoridated water since 1990, translating to savings in dental treatment costs of over $25.7 billion in the past decade. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't push it fast enough, and I read it without it coming in here, but it's easy to see here. Conclusion. Although adults are as likely to experience new caries as children, certain segments of the U.S. adult population, those with low incomes and the elderly, may have little or no access to restorative or preventive clinical care. At present, approximately 15% of state Medicaid programs provide no adult dental benefits at all, and approximately 45% cover only tooth extraction and emergency services. Routine dental care is one of the few healthcare areas not covered by Medicare. Limited access to restorative care increases the need for effective prevention. Complications and pain and suffering are more likely if caries remains untreated. The proportion of the U.S. population comprised of older adults is increasing. Most of these persons are likely to be dentate, that means they have teeth, and at risk for dental caries. And many lower income adults lack access to timely restorative care. Our finding that fluoride is effective among all adults supports the development and implementation of fluoride programs to serve this population.
So once again, just to repeat, that was Dr. Pollack's, Professor Pollack's slides being read by Dr. Osmunson. Now, Dr. Osmunson and Dr. Wilson will have 10 minutes to do their own PowerPoint presentation, responding to many of these points, and then we'll move into the question and answer session after this next short PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so since the PowerPoint's not working, I'll work on it and you make a few comments first.
Well, I would like to say that in all the things that I have read recently, I feel more sure than ever that it shouldn't be put in our water. We have the options when we see a doctor to get a prescription, and when we get that prescription, we're given information, so we're making informed consent. When it's put in the water, we aren't making informed consent, and unless you do a lot of your own research and decide you want to filter your water or not, that's difficult.
Dennis, don't tell the truth anyway.
And the thing about that is not everyone can afford to filter it out of their water either. So once it's in the water supply and you can't get it out and you can't filter it, then you have to drink it. And there are people, for example, that would have health conditions like diabetes that might want to drink a lot more water. So how can you control how much they're getting?
I'm not sorry at all for that. I'm sorry that the machine didn't work here. Okay, clean water is fluoride-free and other toxins-free. We're just talking about one. Dr. Pollack and I, if we sat down, we had a chance to discuss things, we would probably agree, and I agree with much of his presentation, that freedom is extremely important. We need to have the freedom to choose. Fluoridation removes that freedom. That clean water is important. That dental caries are a concern, and that many are getting too much fluoride. We disagree on the regulatory standards that they're safe. We disagree that fluoride is effective, and we disagree that it's safe. Here's a bag of some of the stuff that's put into the water, the hydrofluorosilicic acid. This has gotten out of the scrubbings of the phosphate fertilizer. Now it's being brought in from China because we're running short. These are some of the different chemicals that are in the product. Although they are at low concentrations, things such as arsenic, the maximum contaminant level goal of the EPA is 0. So we are exceeding the goal by adding this product in the water. Risks. The National Research Council unanimous agreement in 2006 that he and I both quote, EPA's maximum contaminant level for fluoride is too high. Change it, EPA. Why? The National Academy of Science, National Research Council said because of tooth damage, rheumatoid and osteoarthritic like pain, movement, pain, arthritis, bone cancer, bone fractures, thyroid reduction, kidney damage, reproductive problems, lower IQ, increased mental retardation, allergies and gastrointestinal disorders. And because of this, the committee unanimously agreed the EPA needs to do a new dose response analysis. I do not have time to cover all of these. What did you make a couple comments?
So one of the things that I'm concerned about is on a tube of toothpaste, it says if you swallow more than a pea-sized amount, seek emergency medical attention, contact a poison control center. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have been around a lot of small children brushing their teeth in the bathroom. Do you think a 3-year-old can discern what a pea-sized amount of toothpaste is? And if this is what's in the toothpaste and they don't want us to swallow it, it doesn't make any sense to me why we would want to swallow it in water as well.
Exactly. 100%.
If you can hold your questions till afterwards, I'd appreciate it. A pea size of toothpaste has 1/4 milligram of fluoride in it, according to Pollock, when we were testifying in the legislature, and I found that he is correct on that. The same as 1 glass of water, 8 ounces, this is bigger than 8 ounces. So the FDA says do not swallow the same amount of fluoride as is in this glass. And yet the water district forces us to swallow each one. In Calgary, they have a tiny little pea size that they're showing. Children get too much fluoride even without fluoridation. 2 to 4-year-olds ingest 2 times as much fluoride from toothpaste alone as from food and water combined. 75% more fluoride ingested for those who do not rinse. We'll talk more about that later. Infants, mother's milk contains almost no fluoride. In most samples, it has no fluoride detectable. That's nature's dosage for infants is nothing. If you make fluoride, water, and formula and give it to infants, you're giving 170 to 250 times more fluoride than mother's milk. This is some dental fluorosis from the American Dental Association. Gives examples from it. We're all concerned about this, all sides. Nobody discounts that. Fluoride causes dental fluorosis. Here's some examples. You can see it kind of there in the front, some white spots, brown spots. Treatment for this type of thing is with veneers, or there are other types of things. We're now using more of calcium pastes, but that can cost $1,000 to $2,000 per tooth for veneers and lasts about 15, 20 years. So you're looking at perhaps $100,000 lifetime damage from the dental fluorosis. Dental fluorosis, you get an electron microscope, there are little pits in the enamel, cracks, fissures in the enamel. The tooth is harder. I promoted fluoride. I saw it in people's mouths that it was a benefit because the tooth looked better. And it does, my electron microscope and visually. Here's a 2009 publication. What we see at the bottom is low fluoride content in the water. To the right, high fluoride content in the water. As the fluoride in the water increases, you can see the blue lines of dental fluorosis. Yes, dental fluorosis, a toxic sign of excess fluoride ingestion, does go up. However, look at the dental caries in the red lines. It's virtually flat. So you could have no fluoride in the water, or you could have lots of fluoride in the water, and it's not going to make much difference. Another problem that dentists refuse to talk about or do much research on is tooth fractures. You can see here a patient came in, I took a picture. They had a loose little edge, I pulled it off, I took a picture of it. That's a cracked tooth. When we look at the research, there is no good research on it. But there are 3 studies, one where there was no fluoride in the water at 2% of the visits coming to the dental office with complete cusp fracture. An easy thing to look at and see. And where there's 19% of the population fluoridated, there was 4% complete cusp fracture. Where there was 85% of the population fluoridated, 7% of the visits came in. Why? All the research shows that the tooth becomes harder. Is harder better? That's the question. I say no. More tooth fracture. Here's another problem. Diagnosis. When you have fluoride in the water, you look at those 2 teeth, especially in a classroom with a mirror and the light's not good, and you say, well, yeah, there's a 1 tooth that has a cavity there. Yeah, sure. But when you start cleaning that decay out, what you see are bigger holes in there. You get all the decay on out and you see a big hole in there, and then you do a filling. That's what we call a fluoride bomb, where it bombs out inside because the outer side is much harder. If this tooth had not had fluoride, it would have chipped a little bit earlier, and we would have seen it earlier, the filling would have been smaller. Here's a very powerful slide. What we've got is over from 1930 to 1990, and it's actually decreased. The line coming on down, decayed teeth, shows that in 1930 there were about 12 cavities, 11 cavities per 12-year-old. In 1990, there was about 2, and in 2000, about 1.4. Fluoridation in most of the population started around in the 60s. What caused the decay to go down before fluoridation started? Before fluoride toothpaste started? No one knows. And so we don't correct for that in our research. It was naturally coming down. And you know what? I'll get into that later. Okay, tooth decay has declined regardless of fluoridation or fluoride salts. In countries, on the right-hand side, you'll see 14 countries that are non-fluoridated and 4 that are fluoridated. All of them have decreased decay to similar low levels regardless of fluoridation. It makes no difference whether you fluoridate or not. It's a myth now. And if they include fluoridated salt, British Medical Journal, same thing. It doesn't make any difference. So I took data from the government and I said, well, what happens if I rank each state on the whole population fluoridated of each state? That's the blue dots going on up, the higher and higher percentage of the people in the state fluoridated. And then I plotted the wealthy. What was the good health of the wealthy? 82% in every state has very good health. Makes no difference if you fluoridate. What about the poor? Well, the poor is a little bit more variable, but about 55% of the poor have good health regardless of fluoridation. My mistake looking at my patients is I compared the poor and the rich. The rich had better teeth. And I go, well, they've had the fluoride, right? I was wrong. If fluoride really reduced decay and provided better health, we would see a decrease in dental expenses. There is only one good research on dental expenses after 60 years of fluoridation, and that one showed that actually, for children, there's less dental expenses in the non-fluoridated community. This is right across the river from each other. Now this one is something that has got a lot of data, and I want to go real quick on it. At the top line, you'll see less than 75 on over to greater than 125. This is IQ. This is the economic and social correlates of IQ. In other words, is the brain important? Some of you may have doubts. I doubt it. But if you do have doubts that your brain is important, then you probably need some more IQ. So what I want you to do is just understand how important IQ is. We're going to compare low IQ and we're going to compare the gifted. Okay? And when we look at that, out of labor force of more than 1, you have 22 compared to 10. Unemployed more than 1 month out of the year, 12 compared to 2. Divorced in 5 years, half. Had an illegitimate baby, 32 compared to 2. Lives in poverty, 30 compared to 2. Ever incarcerated for men, 7 compared to, it didn't statistically show up. Chronic welfare recipient, 31, didn't show up for the wealthy. Higher school dropout, 55. Hey, you guys, brains are important. Okay, and do dentists diagnose brains? No. So what we've got here is 25 human studies showing IQ loss. That is huge. That is monster. And of this, you can see the bell curve, where the blue is those with low fluoride in their blood, and those in the red, how the whole bell curve skewed on down. A tripling of mentally retarded, a 1/3 of the gifted. So I took the states and I plotted the states. How are we doing on the states here? We've got 50 states of the little dots, and I plotted the percentage of mentally retarded. The percentage of mentally retarded is 50, where there's almost no fluoridation, and 170, where there is a lot of fluoridation. A tripling of mentally retarded in the fluoridated communities. One of the causes we feel is maybe that that we've measured higher blood lead levels. Now, I know the public said it's not the case, but this research is from 2007. Perhaps he hadn't read it yet. CDA and ADA warn infants should not consume fluoridated water. CDC, the Center for Disease Control, ingestion of fluoride is not likely to reduce tooth decay. EPA scientists find fluoridation borders on a criminal act on the parts of governments. National Institute of Health, evidence for fluoridation is incomplete. Food and Drug Administration toothpaste warning, if more than a quarter milligram swallowed, call the Poison Control Center. Don't swallow it. Most European Dental Association, Canadian Dental Association, do not recommend fluoride supplements. So if you look at the American public health organizations, they say yes. If you look worldwide, they say no, don't do it. The EPA scientists say no to fluoridation. In summary, we hold that fluoridation is an unreasonable risk. That is, the toxicity of fluoride is so great and the purported benefits associated with it are so small, if there are any at all, that requiring every man, woman, and child in America to ingest it borders on criminal behavior on the part of governments. Now, when I first read that, I was absolutely shocked. I said, of course it's beneficial. And after I did the research, I go, ooh, I think they're correct. I have not found anything incorrect in their statement. After 60 years of community water fluoridation, we still do not know how much fluoride is required to prevent dental caries. That's the American Dental Association. And remember, the American Dental Association is like a union to protect the dentists. They testified in court that they have no duty to protect the health of the public. Their duty is to protect the dentists, the dues-paying members. And so don't look at the American Dental Association for security on the safety of these things.
Bill, how many more slides do you have?
Oh, when the time ends, I can go on all night. So I will, when the time goes, we're getting close, yes. How much fluoride are you ingesting from all sources? Do you know how much fluoride you're getting? How much fluoride do you need or want in your blood, dent, and enamel? How much fluoride is safe for teeth, brains, bones, kidneys? Who's responsible for the dosage and the harm from too much fluoride? And these are the questions that whoever's got the hand on the faucet needs to be saying. How much fluoride do we have? It's not going to cost that much for volunteers to go up to the water district and say, take some of my blood and tell me how much fluoride I have in my blood. Do some random sampling on it. It's very inexpensive to do some measurements. Profluoridationists talk about treating water. What we're doing is treating people. How much fluoride do you have in your blood? And the research is clear. Most of you have too much fluoride in your blood. How much do you have in your urine? Most of you have too much in urine. And if you don't have it in your urine, that's because it's staying in your body. If you want the fluoride out of your body, it's going to take 20 years as the half-life for the fluoride to come out of your body. Okay, the intent of use. This is a huge one. And the toothpaste says drug facts. Well, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act says drugs are defined as articles intended for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. Fluoridated water is a drug. The manufacturer of the drug is the water district, not the federal government. They don't fluoridate. Not the state, they don't fluoridate. The manufacturer is your local water district who votes on it. They are the ones that manufactures the drug. It is an unapproved drug. The FDA has never approved anything in fluoride except toothpaste, and it says do not swallow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Osmunson. I'm going to spend a little while asking some questions. The questions that I've been gathering over the last week or so, and